I'm Joe Edney.
And I'm Laurie Baker. We work with K-12 educators every day as part of RTI's Center for Education Services.
We've developed a white paper focused on enacting meaningful change in K-12 settings. And this 4-part video series will summarize the white paper and offer actionable tips.
We hope these resources help you as you navigate change in your own setting.
Managing change is a daily part of the human experience. From navigating a new phone upgrade to welcoming a new family member, we all encounter change all the time. And nowheres is more true than in education.
The one thing that kind of spurred us on to think about change management in education is how most of us who are traditionally trained educators go through this process where we are exposed to change management from the business and industry world, which is great. There's so many wonderful resources out there. But the problem is, after a while, you start to get the impression that they don't really understand the complexities of education and all the things that make change in education more difficult.
And picking up on that, we took a look at education broadly and said, what makes it different? What are those things that make it more difficult? And we identified 8 reasons, and together those 8 reasons make change really unique, especially in K-12. And so this series of videos we're doing is going to talk not only about some of the reasons change is different, but also give you a snapshot of the ways that you can address change to bring about a greater chance of success on the back end. So we're going to start with 3 things that make change different in education.
First is this idea that education is a generational experience. So this is very different from business and industry. In education, we often have parents and grandparents, entire families and communities that attend the same school or the same schools within a district. And so you'll see this play out if a new leader comes in and wants to make what seems like it would be a relatively minor change and perhaps paint over a mural, freshen up the paint a little bit. But if that mural is part of this shared generational experience, it could unleash a firestorm of very, very unhappy stakeholders in the school and district.
And I can think of my very own high school where we had this rock at the front of the school and it had flaky paint and it looked really just bootleg. But if you touched that rock, you were definitely going to hear about it. And so it was something where, as students, we just relished having this rock that was the same thing that our grandparents used to touch when they walked in the door. And so I can absolutely see how a leader could run into trouble if they mess with that.
Yeah, you can't paint that rock.
So the next one is just the degree that education serves all. Right. So Laurie talked about this shared generational experience, but education serves everybody. And what that means is that you get a tremendously high degree of variability. So where students come from, the meal they had the last night, the issue that they're dealing with, all of these things compound into the need for educators to be able to address it. And so much like an ambulance crew has to be prepared for anything they encounter, right? Ready to triage, ready to move or diagnose. In the same way, every single day, educators have to be prepared for anything. And I think that variability can create difficulty, especially when navigating change initiatives as you're trying to implement.
Yeah, and Joe mentioned education serves all. The third thing we want to mention that makes education change different is that you have limitless stakeholders. So in the business and industry world, if you want to change something in your product line, you really have 2 different constituent groups to please. The first is your board of directors, and the second is your customers. But in education, everyone is your customer. So not only are students and their parents and the community members your customers, but that location's economics is tied to the reputation that the school has. And so all the business and industry leaders have a stake in how well that school does. So even your local real estate agent, that person's livelihood hinges on changes that are made in the school.
And so each of these different change characteristics that apply to education have implications for how you effectively implement change and manage it. And the white paper talks about 8 different conditions just like these and the implications of those on how you approach change. In the next video, we're going to take it to the next step, and we're going to talk a little bit more about how to diagnose and even classify change so that you're not trying to do everything at once, but you're more strategic in the strategies you select and how to do it.